When it comes to actually saving and loading our game in a visual novel, the most important thing is probably the screenshot you show the player to show them where they are in the game. Now, in Unreal 4, there are a couple ways you can take a screenshot. You could use a screen capture 2D, and what this would do is it would sort of look through this camera at the 3D world, and, well, whatever it sees, it would project it onto a texture target right here. And then we could save the pixels from the texture target into a image that we save on disk, and then we could load the image on whenever we need to show the player our saves. The problem with doing this is that it actually doesn't show your UI because it's just showing it through the 3D camera. Another possibility is we could use a console command called high res shot, and then we could give it a resolution of say 2560 times 1440, and when we hit enter, you'll see that we have a new screenshot. And if we were to look at that screenshot, you'll see that we have a screenshot of our game. The problem with doing this is that if we were to play right now in our selected viewport and do a high res shot 2560 times 1440, and we look at that screenshot we get, it doesn't actually include the UI either. So that's kind of a big problem. I'm actually not sure why they don't give you the option to include the UI, because it's not that hard, but we can't do it, unfortunately, in Blueprints at least, by default. If we were to go to our player controller, for example, and right click and say screenshot UI, you'll see that there is this take automation screenshot of UI over here, and I actually don't know how this works. I've never actually gotten it to take a screenshot of my UI ever, so it never completes for me for some reason. I'm not sure what this does, to be completely honest, so that's why we're also not going to do that. So instead, what we could do is make a new widget, and we could call this something like fake screenshot or whatever. And inside of this fake screenshot, what we could do is sort of make this widget look exactly like our dialogue, except it wouldn't have any of the functionality. So the text wouldn't type itself out or anything, it would just sort of fake having a screenshot there. But that would be kind of a problem when we do our 3D backgrounds, because of the way we're going to be doing our 3D backgrounds. It would also be a pain to just make it in general. You have to make sure that it scales correctly so that you can resize it to be however big you want, and I just don't feel like doing the work, to be completely honest. I'm going to delete this, and what I'm gonna do instead is do some minor C++. Like, this is like 4 lines of code. By the way, if you just don't want to install Visual Studio, or if you just don't want to use C++ for whatever reason, you would have to do the sort of fake screenshot method and read from your save data to see what your game would look like when you saved. That in itself is not very hard, but you'd have to make it scale properly so that it looks right whenever you make it bigger or smaller based on how big you want your image to be in your save preview. Obviously, that's not a problem when we actually just take a screenshot, because it would resize based on the image, how far we stretch that. But anyways, moving on. To actually add the C++ class, we can just right click and go to new C++ class and go down to blueprint function library. Click next and then name it whatever you want. I believe I named it UI screenshot. And in case you don't know any C++, it's, like I said, it's just 5 lines of code. It shouldn't be too hard to copy. And when you hit create class, it's going to open up Visual Studio. I already created my class though, so I'm not going to do that again. You're also going to have a new button over here that compiles and reloads C++ code for game systems on the fly. So basically, we're going to have to click on this after we type in our code. And our code is just this right here. Now, in case you don't know any C++, I'm just going to explain to you exactly what you need to type and what you don't need to type. Everything up here is going to be here by default, and so is this generated.h. This right here is going to be the name of whatever you made your class, and this is also going to be right here. The hash include Unreal Client.h, this you need to type in. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to do the f-screenshot function. All this stuff is also here by default. Don't worry about any of this, but what we do need to type in is this stuff right here. Public with the colon. Next line is ufunction, parentheses, blueprint callable. That way the blueprint can actually call this function, and the category can be whatever you want. You just have to put in a name here. I chose UI screenshot, and this is just going to be what it appears as when you go to, say, our player controller, and right click, and you'll see that we have the UI screenshot category right here, and here's our function, take screenshot of UI. So the actual function, you have to make it static so that anything can call this. Void, it doesn't return anything, and then take screenshot of UI. That's just what you call your function. You can name it whatever you want. Obviously, I chose take screenshot of UI. We need some parentheses again with a s string right here, followed by name. The string is just a type, and name is the variable name. You can actually name this whatever you want, but I just chose name. Then we need the curly brackets and a closing curly bracket at the end, and in between them you need the screenshot request, 2 colons, request screenshot, parentheses, name, or whatever you named your string up here, true. This says take a screenshot with your UI, and then false, which makes it so that when you take a screenshot, if the screenshot name already exists, it won't say something like test screenshot 0001 and then 0002. Instead, it would just replace your test screenshot existing screenshot with another test screenshot, which makes it easier for us to actually load our screenshots for our saves. And then we need a semicolon at the end, otherwise it won't compile. Once you've finished typing all that out, just go back to Unreal Engine and hit this compile button right here. And that should compile it, so you'll be able to see it when you go to, well, whatever you need to modify. By the way, before you actually do add a new C++ class to your Blueprint only, project, I'd like to mention that it is actually possible for your game to not be able to compile properly, and it just won't open anymore for reasons. So I suggest you actually make a clone of your project. You can do that by right-clicking on your project and saying clone before you actually add your C++ class. That way, if it doesn't work, you always have your original you can, well, work off of, or make another clone of. Anyways, now that we have that, we need to actually do stuff with it. So if we were to actually, let's show it working first. We could go to our player controller, and on spacebar pressed, we can just say screenshot of UI. Take screenshot of UI. There it is. And we can give it a name. Let's say, I don't know, test screenshot. If we compile and then play in this viewport and do a spacebar, you don't see a message pop up, but that's fine. But if we go back to our folder with our screenshots, you'll see that we now have our test screenshots, and you'll also see that it includes the Unreal editor, which is obviously not very great for our saves. If we were to go to a separate viewport and press save, and we look at our folder again, you'll see that we have our image. It takes up more of the screen this time, but we still have the title bar at the very top, which is, again, not very great for saves. But if we were to play in a standalone game, let me actually just go to my map that doesn't need to be saved, and we play in a standalone game, and then do our saves and exit out of here, we look back at our folder and we have our screenshot with no title bar. So this works perfectly well for our saves. So let's actually use this now. We'll go back to our widgets and let's create a new user interface widget blueprint. We'll just call this save button, or w_save button. And inside of our save button, I'm going to create a new, let's go with button. Let's replace this canvas, so delete the canvas panel with a button. And inside of this button, we're going to want a vertical box. And in the vertical box, we want an image, which is just going to be our save image. So let's make sure that's a variable, and we just call this our save image. And underneath it, we want two text. And the first one is just going to be the save name. So let's make sure these are variables. This first one is save name. And the bottom one is going to be our save details. We also need a new widget for our actual save load window, and when we go to our saves and loads. So let's make a w_save load, and we're going to do our saving and loading in the same widget. They're just going to branch based on if we're saving or loading. So let's get rid of this canvas panel, and instead we're going to have a scroll box, so that, well, we can scroll if we have too many saves. And inside of the scroll box, we want a grid panel, or a uniform grid panel. Let's make sure the uniform grid panel is a variable. We'll call this our saves container. And in the event graph, let's make a new function. We're going to call this create save buttons. And then all we're going to do is get all saves, go through each of these, and then if it is not equal to persistent data, persistentdata.sav, because that's the file extension for your saves. If you want to know where your saves are, by the way, when you're in Unreal, it's just in your project folder, saved, save games, and then that's where you'll see your saves. So you'll see right now that we have our persistentdata.save and our quicksave.save. So let's actually put a space in between our words in persistent data and do a branch. And then what we're going to do is say if it is not our persistent data, so if it's a normal save, then we're going to create a new widget, and that widget type of course is our save button. And then we're going to get our save button, get its save image, and then set brush from texture. So to actually get our screenshot, we can do a load texture 2D from file by extension. Now I should mention that this is part of the Victory plugin, and so is the stuff we're about to do. So for our image path, we need our, let's do append, and for the A, we need the screenshot directory. The B is going to be our array element, left chop 4 to get rid of the .save, and then we need to add another pin for our image type, and I believe that was .png. Since this is not a pure function, we need to actually connect this to our execution pins, and then we can plug in our return value to our texture. Also in our for each loop. Let's plug this in right there. And we need to actually add this to our grid. So in our saves container, we're going to just add child. The child, of course, being our button. And we need to set the as uniform grid slot, and then set row and set column. The map for this is just going to be the same as when we did our gallery. So we're going to get our array index and do a divide, integer divided by integer, and we're going to do a modulo. For the size, we can just make a new variable. We'll call this our saves per row, and it's going to be an integer. And I'm going to make this a default of 3. Plug these into the appropriate slots, which I probably got wrong again, and we'll go and compile and go back to our game instance. And we need to actually call this when we do our stuff. So let's say, I don't know, after we create our codex buttons, we're going to get our menu widget, and we need to actually add this to our menu widget. I forgot to do that. Let's go to our menu widget, and in the widget switcher, add our save load, compile, and then back in our game instance, off our menu widget, get the save load, and then tell it to create buttons. Let's go back to our menu for now, and in the graph on save clicked, or actually it'd be easier to do it on load clicked, we are just going to show our menu widget. This is going to be number 5. So if we were to go to our dialog, and then on the unclicked quick save button, we can do a take screenshot of UI, and the name is just going to be quick save. And then play in standalone game, wait for it to load, hit start, and then quick save, and then let's just exit out, and we look at our screenshots. You see we now have quicksave.png with our image right there. So if we were to play again, and then go to our load button, you'll see that we now have our image, except it's really squished, like it's totally not right at all. So let's go back to our save button in the designer, click on our save image, and we can wrap this with a size box to, well, override the size. So we can set this to be whatever we want. I'm going to do something like 320 by 180, and that should get us our 16 by 9 aspect ratio. If we were to play one more time and hit load, you'll see that the aspect ratio is now correct. The text blocks are not centered though, so I want to deal with that, and we also want to fill in the data about our saves in our text blocks. So let's deal with that back in our save load, and let's see, we want to get our buttons get save name and set text to be our array element for each loop with the left chop, because that just gets us our name into our in text. So let's plug this into here, and then we want to get our buttons save details, and then set that text. Now for the save details, I'm not going to put anything in text just yet. We're going to do that later, but if we compile, save, and play once again, and if we hit load, you'll see that we have our quick save here. It's slightly off center though, which is obviously not what we want, so let's go back to our designer, and in our saves container, let's make this centered. Save and play once more, and if we were to hit load, you'll see that we now have our quick save with our name as quick save over here in our, well, details of it. So let's actually add some more saves because, well, there's no point in having a load screen if you only have one save. So to do that, we can go back to our content browser, make a new user interface. This is going to be our w_new save button. And this new save button, we're going to replace the canvas panel with a button. And inside of the button, I'm just going to have a widget switcher. And inside of the widget switcher, first I want a text, and this text is just going to say new save, and then I want a text box, which will allow our player to enter a name for a new save. So for the text block, let's go with new save, and make the text black. And on the text box, we'll make the hint text new text, or new save name. We also want to make sure to increase the size to something reasonable. I'm going to go with 28. That should kind of do it for that. On the text committed, what we're going to do is we'll just save our game with the new save information. So on text committed, first we want to check to see if our text is not empty, is empty, and then branch, because we don't want to save with a blank text. That's not going to work very well. We also want to make sure our commit method is enter, so equals enum on enter. So let's do an and right here. So if our save name is valid and we hit enter, then what we're going to do is get our game instance, and we're going to create a new save. The type, of course, is our vn save game, and we're going to cast to vn game instance, and then tell it to do the on save game. And the save game is the one we just created, and then we do all this stuff right there. And after that, of course, we need to actually save our game. So save game to slot, and the save name, of course, is just our text to string. And we need to have our actual screenshot, which is going to be a problem because when this button is visible, our new save button, we're going to be in our menu. So we need to tell our menu to actually just disappear. So we need to say get menu, get canvas panel 0, and then set render opacity to be 0, and we also have to set the visibility to be hit test invisible. After that, we can do our take screenshot of UI with the name once again being just our text to string. And we actually need to put this somewhere, so in our save load, instead of just having a scroll box here, I'm going to wrap this with a vertical box and make sure our scroll box fills the screen. And then in our vertical box, above our scroll box, we're going to have our new save button. Before I forget, I want to go back to our new save button in the designer, and on this widget switcher, make this stretch across the screen and have our text centered. That way the editable text box will take up across the entire thing. We won't have to click directly in the middle in order to actually edit it. And obviously we don't want our save button to pop up in our save load when we're doing our load. So when we actually click save or load game, we want to tell it if we are saving or loading. So in our save load, let's make a new function. We're going to call this set saving, I guess. And this is going to take a boolean that's just if we are saving. We're going to set the visibility of our new save button and set visibility to be if we are saving or not. If it is true, we are visible. If we are false, then we are collapsed. Now back to our menu. When we actually do our on-click save and on-click load, we need to tell it that we are saving or loading. So before we show our menu widget, let's also get our save load widget and set saving. For save, it is true. For load, it is false. We also want to do the same thing back in our dialog when we do our save and load buttons. So on save button clicked and on load button clicked, we want to do the same thing. So get our menu widget, show menu widget number 5, but before that, get the save load widget and set saving to be true or false. So let's hit play and make sure this actually works. And if we hit load, the button doesn't show up for our new save. If we were to start and then hit save, we have our new save button. and clicking on it doesn't do anything because I forgot to program that in. But if we go back to load, it disappears, and if we go back to save, it's right there. So let's actually make it so that when we click on a button, it does stuff. So in our new save button, on the actual button, we need to do onClicked, and when we do onClicked, all we're going to do is tell our widget switcher to go to child 0. So child 1. When we hit save, by the way, when we actually make a new save, we also want this to go back to 0. That way when we want to make a new save, it won't just have the text right there. So let's also just copy this, and at the very end here, let's set this index to 0. Press play, start a new game, go to our save, hit on a new save, and now we can enter a new save name. And I can do something like, I don't know, test save. And I hit enter, and nothing happened there. Okay. I see the problem. When we do our is text empty, we need to do a not. Otherwise, it's not going to save because we actually have text in it, and we want to make sure it doesn't have text in it in order to make it not save, if that makes any sense. So let's compile, save, and play this one more time. Start, save, new save, test save, enter. We go back to this screen, and if we go to load, it doesn't show up because we need to actually add the buttons there. But if we were to play one more time and we go to our load, you'll see that we now have our quick save and our test save. So that's working fine. And if you look really closely, you'll see that the text lines are at different lengths. So they're definitely using the different images. We should make it so that the buttons actually show up when we make a new save. So let's add a new variable. We'll call this our, I don't know, saves container, and the type is just going to be the uniform grid panel. And then back in our save load, when we do our create save buttons, when it's completed or before it's completed, it doesn't really matter, we can do our get new saves button and set saves container to be our saves container. And then back in our new save button, once we've actually taken the screenshot of our UI and all that stuff, we are going to get our saves container and add child. That child, of course, is going to be a new saves button, so we need to create widget. The widget is our save button, and we need to do the stuff we did in our save load for our save button. So this stuff right here. Instead of doing it over here, I'm just going to make it a function in our actual save button. So let's go back to our graph and delete this stuff and say custom event. We'll call this update save, and this is just going to take in a save object. So vn save game, and this is going to be our new save. I'm also going to promote this to a variable because we're going to want to know what save we actually have when we click the button when we do our load game. So we'll call this our save game, and then after that we'll just go back to our save load, and let's just cut all this stuff. Cut this out and paste it in our save button. So let's see here. Instead of using a target save image, we're just going to plug in our own save image, so we can get rid of this. Instead of save name and save details, we can just use our own save name and save details. The slot as uniform grid slot, we need to get ourself. Let's have our saves per row in our actual buttons instead, so we don't need to have it in our save load because we just don't need it. So let's delete this, and then back in our saves button, add a new variable. This is going to be our saves per row, and this is going to be an integer, and just plug these into our divide and modulo. For the saves container, let's actually just make this something we expose on spawn. So promote this to a variable. We'll call this saves container. And for the topmost parts, for our modulo and divide, we can just get our saves container get child count and do -1, because that's going to be our topmost one. Go back to our save load, and let's say refresh this node, and it doesn't pop up. Where is our saves container? We need to expose this to spawn, and same with our save game. Let's also expose this to spawn. Compile, save. Sorry, I forgot to plug in our text name for our text name over here. So let's actually just promote this to a variable. This is going to be our save name, and we'll also expose this to spawn. And we can just plug in our save name to our append B over here. Save name, append B, there it is. That should actually now do it. So going back to our save load widget, we need to plug in our save game, which we're going to get from load game from slot, and the slot name is going to be our array element with the left chop of 4. And we need to cast to vn save game. And for our save container, we can just get our saves container right there. And then we need to tell it to update save. Actually, now that I think about it, we don't actually need to plug in our save here. We can get rid of this, and we don't need that set because it is exposed to spawn, and we never actually need to update our save when we hit update save. Okay, I forgot to actually plug in ourself to our add child, so do self right there. We have to actually also set our saves per row. We're gonna go with 3. One more time, compile, save, play, go to our load, and you see we have our saves showing up again. So that's all well and good. Now in our new saves button, let's just get rid of this add child. Our save game is going to be the save game we created, so create save game, plug this into our save game. Saves container is going to be our saves container, and the save name is just this stuff over here. So let's see if our saving or our new save works. Press play, start, save, and then make a new save. We'll call this test save 2. Go to our load, and it doesn't show up. Okay, what's happening there is we forgot to actually call the update save. Play, start, save, new save, hello world. Go back to our saves, and now hello world shows up. Perfect. Although the screenshot isn't exactly what I was hoping for. What's going on there? Okay, I think I know what's going on. When you take a new screenshot from the new saves button on the take screenshot over here, when it requests for a screenshot, it actually has to wait for the screen to update to actually, take the screenshot. So let's just do a delay in our update saves of 0.2 works. It doesn't really matter because there's really no way your player is going to be able to click on save again, hopefully, before then. So save, new save, this is a new save. I can't spell, it doesn't matter. Load, and there we go. This is a new save, has a image. Perfect. Now we have to deal with our actual save load buttons doing stuff, or save buttons doing stuff. So back in our save button, we're going to go to our button 0, on clicked, and we need to branch on if we are saving or loading. So we need to make a new variable. This is our saving, and it's going to be a boolean, and we're going to branch on if we're saving. And if we are saving, then we're going to do some stuff. But if we're not saving, we're going to do some other stuff. So let's get our game instance, because we're going to need that. Cast to vn game instance, and then we're going to do load game. And to pass it, for our save game we're passing in, it's just going to be our save game. So that's what's going to happen if we are false on saving. If we are true, then we're going to get our game instance and say on save game, passing in our, save game. Actually, on save game, we also then have to call our own update save afterwards. We should also actually probably save our game after we press save game. So save game to slot, our slot name is our save name, and we also never actually tell our menu to go away when we hit load. So let's try seeing if that works. We're going to get our game instance, get menu, and then show dialog widget. I believe that was a function. So when we're hitting quick save right now, we're creating a new save game object instead of using the save game object that we already have for our, quick saves. Instead of doing that, let's check to see if we have a quick save save object instead. So back in our save load, after we create our save buttons, let's actually just return our quick save. So instead of making this a custom event, we're going to make a new function that's going to be our create save buttons. So let's delete this and cut all this out. Make a new function. We'll call this create save buttons and buttons, and paste all that stuff in here. And then we also want to make a new output, and this output is going to be a save game, the end save game, and it's going to be our quick save. So let's see, we can make a new local variable for our quick save. We'll call it LOC quick save for local. Type is vn save game, and we'll set this to be the load game from slot over here if our array element is equal to quick save. So if the left chop equals quick save, we're going to do a branch after we update our save, and then we're going to set our local quick save to be the cast to vn save game right here. And then at the very end, when we complete our loop, we're going to return our local quick save. And then back in our game instance, when we call our create save buttons, we're going to get our dialog widget, and our dialog widget doesn't have this variable yet, so we should probably add it. In our dialog widget, we're going to add another variable. This is going to be our quick save. Once again, its type is vn save game, and we can actually just make this expose on spawn and create our saves before we create our dialog widget in our game instance. So back in our game instance, let's just link this back to here, break this link, get rid of this reference to our dialog widget, move this stuff over to the very beginning, and after we say create our menu widget, we'll create our save buttons, and then we'll refresh our dialog widget and pass in the quick save from here. And then in the dialog, when we do our quick save, first we're going to check to see if our quick save is valid or not. So get quick save is valid, and if the quick save is valid, then we're going to just do the on save game for our quick save. Quick save, here we go, and plug this into, well, everywhere that this was connected to. So here and here. And if it's not valid, then we have to create a new save game object and then set our quick save to be that save we created, and then plug this into here. We also have to create our button for our save game. So right click, create widget. This is save button. The save game is our quick save. Saves container we're gonna have to get somehow. The save name is our quick save. This is gonna come after we set our quick save and plug this into our on save game. After we do our stuff over here, let's also do a delay when we take our screenshot of UI and tell the button to well, do its stuff. So we should also promote this to a variable. This is going to be our quick save button. So after we hit quick save, we're going to do the delay after we take a screenshot of our UI and tell our quick save button to update the save. And we need to find the container somehow, so let's just get our menu widget and find it through there, because this is only going to be called once. So get our menu widget. It's not that big of a deal to get it like this. So menu save load, get save container, and just pass this into here. Compile, save, and let's try this one more time. Hit play, start quick save, options, menu, load, and our quick save is like that. If we hit load, we're gonna go back to the first screen. So our that worked, but we got an error here. What is this? Access none trying to read property quick save button. Okay, we should probably also expose this to spawn. Quick save button, expose to spawn, instance editable. And back in our save load, we're also gonna return the button. So quick save button right here, we're gonna promote this to a local variable. Local quick save button, like that, and then we're gonna add it to our return node, and we just call this regular quick save button. No need for the local. Back in our game instance, we can just plug our quick save button into there. So if we compile, save, play one more time, start, and then do a quick save and exit, we don't get the error anymore. So let's play, start, go to our, I don't know, do we want to move on? Do a quick save, go to our options, let's go back to our menu, load, our quick save, which is kind of messed up right now because of the stuff, because of the way we're adding our buttons, but we'll deal with that. Hopefully we click on the quick save, and there we go. Do we want to move on to the next chapter? So that moved us to the right location. So what's happening here with our buttons is, right now it looks fine, but if we start and then do a quick save, go back to our options, or sorry, go to our load, it moves from this slot to this slot, and it never tells everything in between there to move up by one space. So we need to actually tell it to do that. So let's compile and save and go back to our save button, and when we do our update save, we're going to have to tell everything in between us and the very last, or actually all the way up to the last element, to go back by 1. So let's add a new event. This is going to tell everything to go back by 1, so add a custom event. We'll call this move back by 1. This is a horrible name, but whatever. And what we're going to do here is get our current element, or get our current index in our saves container. So get saves container, get index, and the content is our self. We're just going to have to set the column and rows based on the current index of ourself minus 1. So let's just copy this stuff, plug it in, and instead of getting our saves container children count minus 1, we are going to get our child index minus 1 and set our rows and stuff based on that. And to tell everything to do this, we are going to go back to our update save, and let's say before we add ourselves to our saves container, well, we don't need to do this if we're already in our saves, if we're not in our saves container yet. So if this is a new save and it doesn't have a button yet, then we're just going to add ourselves to the end. So it doesn't matter, we don't have to tell everything between the beginning and the end to go back by 1. So we need to branch to see if we are already in our saves container or not. So get the saves container has child. There we go, has child. The content is our self, and do a branch. And if it's false, we can just move on to the add child as normal. But if it is true, then we need to get our current index, get index. Once again, the child is ourself, and we're going to go from our index plus 1, so get our next neighbor, or next one in the container, and we're going to do a for loop. The first index is our index plus 1, and the last index is our save container's children count minus 1. And on the complete, we go back to adding ourselves to the container, but in the loop body, we need to get our save containers get child at the index, cast to save button, tells that save button to move back by 1. So let's compile, save, play, start, and then do a quick save, go back to our load, and you'll see that our quick save at the end and everything else moved back by 1. So that's great. If we do another save, new save, we'll call this Takahashi, whatever, it doesn't matter. Go to our load, there's Takahashi, and then let's save over hello world, go back to our load, and that didn't happen. In our save load, when we did our set saving, we actually had to also get our saves container and go through each of its children and tell it that we are saving or loading now. That's what I forgot to do. So over here, as a save button, we would set saving to be if we are saving or not. So saving right there, and make sure you connect our loop body to our set. If we compile, save, press play, start, save over hello world. Now hello world is at the bottom and everything moves up by 1. So if we do quick save, Takahashi is now next, and test save 2 should now be next, and there we go. Okay, so that is all good. However, we also need to, in our save button, when we hit save, we never actually tell it to take a screenshot anywhere, I don't believe. Yeah, the only time I believe we actually take a screenshot is in our quick save, right there after the delay. So let's do that in our save button. Before we update our save, actually we should probably save our game to slot first. And after we save our game to slot, we are going to have to tell our UI to go invisible, because if we hit play right now and start and save and just click on a save, the UI doesn't go away, so, or the menu doesn't go away. So let's get our save game menu widget, get canvas panel 0, set visibility to be hit as invisible, and set render opacity to be 0. After that, we can do the screenshot of UI. The name, of course, is our save name, and then do the delay, and then do our update save. So if we compile, save, play, start, let's just go somewhere with the choice so we can see the choice, do our save over hello world, go back to our load. Hello world is now at the bottom and it has our choices. And if we were to go somewhere else, let's break this, go back to our load hello world, we're now back at this slot. Okay. Now you notice that even though hello world was the very last save, it doesn't show up at the bottom anymore, because this is just loading them based on, well, alphabetical order, which is not what we want. So now we have to do one more thing. We have to go back to our content browser. In our content, in our save game, we need to add a new variable. This is going to be an integer. We'll just call this save time. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to sort our saves based on this save time. So how do we get our save time? Well, let's go back to, say, our, I don't know, game instance. When we do our save on save game, here we go. We are going to get system time. Unix times, okay, real world get current OS time. This is part of the Victory plugin, by the way. So if you don't see that, it's because you need the Victory plugin. And then we also need to get Unix timestamp. And if we split this structure, you see that we have the same variables here as we do over here. And this is going to return an integer that's unique to every, well, possible time and date. And the higher it is, the more recent it is. So the higher the date it is. So if we plug in the year, month, day, hour 24, make sure you choose a 24 hour, minute, seconds, and I don't think millisecond actually matters, but we'll do it anyways. That will give us our save time. So in the save game, we're going to set save time to be this Unix timestamp, and then back in our save load, when we get all of our, create save children over here, what we need to do is actually load our game from slot first, add them to an array, and then sort that array, and then we can do all this stuff. So we need 2 for each loops. This first one is going to do what we normally did, where we load our game from slot, but instead of immediately creating the button, we're going to break off here and say, just add this to a local array. So make a new variable. This is going to be our vn save game saves, sure, and this is going to be a array. We're going to add our save game to our saves, so get saves, and then add our save game, and that's actually going to be the end of this first loop. So now on this first for each loop, where we go through all of our save names, we are first going to need to sort our saves, so get saves, and then do sort. And this is also part of the Victory plugin, so if you don't see that, that's why you don't see it. And hit this down arrow to show more details, and for the variable name, it's going to be whatever you set your variable name for our save time to be, so it's going to be save time. And then we're going to get our saves again and do our for each loop. On the completed, we're going to do our return, and for our loop body, this is where we're actually going to create our save button widget. So our save game is this array element, and our save container is our save container. As for our save name, the easiest way I can think to find our save name would actually just to make a local variable again. We'll call this save names, and instead of being an array, it's going to be a map, and the key is again our Victory save game, but our value is going to be a string. And then over here, after we load our game from slot and we add it to our array, we're also going to add it to our save names. So get save names and add. The key is our save game, and the string is going to be this left chop count 4, because that's the only one we care about. We don't care about the actual name of the save. We want the chop 4. So back in this for each loop, the create save button widget for our save name is going to be our save names find, and we're going to find our array element, which is our save, and pass in the string over here, and we're going to pass it in over here as well. So for our save game, it's going to be this for each loop. So if we compile, save, and I already saved over each of them in the last take, so let's hit play, go to our load, and you see Takahashi is first with hello world at the bottom. If we start, save, over Takahashi. And then look at our load, you'll see that Takahashi is at the bottom, so if we quit, play, load, Takahashi is still at the bottom. And everything is in the same order because it's sorted it by the time you saved it. So let's actually show that time as our last thing for this video, hopefully. We'll go back to our save button, and over here, when we did our save details, what we're going to do is get our save and get save time, get UTCF, Unix timestamp. And we're going to plug in our save time. So if we split this, we can now, show our date. So off of this in text, I'm going to do a format text. So in this format text, we're going to do our month, spacebar day, comma, spacebar year. Let's do, I don't know, 2 dashes, or just a dash, or something, I don't know. Followed by hour, colon, minute. Yeah, and if we hit enter, you'll see that we now have a bunch of more inputs in here. So we can plug in our month, day, year, hour, and minute. Or let's actually add seconds as well. And seconds. So if we compile, save, and play now, and we go to our load, you see that we now have our dates. So it's 9/8/2018 at 19 hours, 25 minutes, and 34 seconds when we save this. Right now the current time is 7:35, so we start, save, 7:36 now, make a new save, we'll call this H, whatever. Go to our load, you'll see the 7:36 right there, and 7:36. And obviously you can make this fancier to actually show the month in words, like instead of 9 it would say, I don't know what month this is, but you get the point. You would have to just replace the month over here with a word that would be appropriate. Anyways, that should probably do it for our saving and loading. I'm sure I probably forgot something because this is a complete mess of a video, and I apologize for that. Even the power of editing couldn't fix it, but hopefully everything is working on your end and you were able to understand everything that was going on. Also, in our game instance, this is something I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, when we do our load game, we want to actually set our triggered flags and player name before we set our load game stuff over here. Because otherwise our dialogue is going to think we're doing stuff slightly wrong. So you just want to put this stuff before our load game for our dialogue widget and our history, and that should fix whatever problems you might have had if you did it in the wrong order. So let's just compile, save, and I can't actually show that because I don't have that working wrong in my game, but yeah, that's just something I also had to mention. That should actually do it for this video.